Hello. Just check this works. Everybody hear me okay? Cool? Excellent. All right, so what I want to talk about is more very much the consequences of being big, I suppose. And whilst I said Scrum at scale, and a lot of what we do is based around Scrum, it's not so much Scrum I'm interested in, it's more the scale. Okay? So first of all, everything I'm going to give you tonight, it's not my ideas. Even the fact that my ideas are built on other people's ideas is not my idea. This guy got there first. And so in essence, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and take a bunch of ideas, models, frameworks and things that other people have put together. If I stand in the middle, I won't get in the way, will I? And just kind of mash them all together. So I just want to talk about some of other people's ideas. So I don't know if hopefully people are vaguely familiar with some of these things. So the Cynefin theory, theory of constraints, culture models, and various other things. In essence, all I've done is I've mashed these together based on my own experience, my own learnings, and come up with a few ideas that maybe they're worth something, maybe they're not. So we're going to do a massive transformation. This often happens. Big organizations, what we need is a massive transformation because something is wrong. We're going to get loads of people in. And instead of us looking to try and make a small kind of change somewhere, there's this concept of this transformation, this all-encompassing massive effort that we have. And so before you know it, somebody's going to say, oh, what we need, we're going to need some Scrum. And then they're going to go, no, hold on, we're going to need some backlogs to back that up. And then there's some new roles start appearing, and we've got some Post-it notes, massive shipments of them. And then there's backlogs, and the drawings start to get less and less refined, and people start doing them in slightly lower fidelity. And then somebody goes, no, we don't want this, we need it massive, and we're going to buy scaled Agile frameworks, and someone's going to go, no, that's far too processy, we want at the other end of the spectrum, we're going to go less. And it's just, but stop, no, don't do this, don't do that. It's all driven from process and tooling, and you're not going to get what you're really chasing in a very, very large organization if you are going to chase through these small practices. It might work in a smaller organization, a small team, but it's really going to struggle in a very large organization. I would encourage, if you are in this kind of situation, I would encourage we start back and we ask ourselves the question of, where do you want to be? The question is, what is it that you want to be able to do that you can't do today? These are, well, I want Scrum. No, you don't want Scrum. You think you want Scrum. Somebody has sold you Scrum. Don't do that. The real question is, what do you want to do today that you can't? What is the challenge you're facing? What is the problem that you face, and how are you measuring that problem? And what is the definition of success using the measure that you have just described? So this is fairly common. You'll find, the greatest challenge of Agile in large companies, according to the standard report, the latest one came out a couple of weeks ago, organizational culture at odds with Agile values. Okay? This is this is our big challenge. The challenge here is culture, it's not Agile. Okay? So what I would encourage people to do is then, instead of reflecting on your practices and your tooling, reflect on your culture. So these are two fairly standard cultural models that you can choose, and there's an element of similarity between any cultural model, and the choice of cultural model that you choose to reflect upon your organization is less important than the fact that you actually do so. All right? So what you're looking for now is you're trying to understand, where are we? Because the thing that's really, really important is culture is what is inside. It is not what is outside. All right? The really important thing here is to understand that if you just paint on a new culture through process and tooling, you are not really, this is not a tiger for anybody that was unsure. Okay? But one of the problems we'll have is that if I'm trying to decide what culture really is, it's the behaviors we exhibit when nobody's watching. All right? It's the things that drive us under normal day-to-day circumstances. But if we're looking, what we're then showing is that there is an association between our behaviors and our culture. But most of these will also tell you that there is an association between our culture and our values. So there is a cyclical relationship between your values, your behavior, and your culture. You change one, you'll change the other. A cultural system within an organization is probably the best archetype of what you might describe as a complex adaptive system with lots and lots of different elements, all interconnected. You change one, and you're going to have a consequential change on many others that on reflection you can understand exactly why it's happened, but you would not be able to predict. So the best thing to do under those circumstances is make small changes and learn, because you don't really know what you're going to try and do. If you do not look to try and address the cultural issues in your organization, then don't get mad that your agile transformation doesn't work, because that's really where your efforts are going to have to lie. You're going to need to model your cultural position where you are, and you're going to need to model your cultural position of where you want to go to, and you're going to have to map between the two to understand what kind of work, what kind of efforts what kind of work are you going to have to do to try and achieve that? And once you've worked out what that looks like, then all of those things like those scrums and those backlogs and burn downs can be used in support of your top-down intent-based leadership against a cultural change. But if you don't acknowledge there's going to be a cultural change, then your organization will organically resist, like some immune system, the allocation or application of a bunch of these new practices and tools. So I'm just going to refer to my notes now. I have officially lost my place. Okay. So this is, when you start to then understand what culture looks like and where it is, then you're going to start to understand what are the driving factors between the way in which your organization functions and how that has an influence on culture. So this is a very nice model I've discovered, which fundamentally represents some of the drivers between culture. And you can see that they all are, there's no direct arrow. Everything affects everything else. So if you change your structure, it's going to have an influence on your process and your strategy. But if you change your strategy, then you're going to change your process. So what you're going to be looking to do is, in essence, to try and move your organization to where you want to go, you're going to have an idea of a group, of a sequence of things you're going to try and shift over a period of time to, in essence, kind of go round this triangle, edging yourself down here. And as you do so, a lot of the stuff we started with, those backlogs, burn down sprints, and scrums, are going to associate in the bottom left corner. Yeah, but you can't bring those in all at once because you've got to be able to support them with the other two apexes of this triangle. So we now understand what we need to do. What we need to do is we need to go back to first principles, and then we're going to have some idea about morals and culture and what it means to work here, and then we're going to describe our culture, and then we're going to do some management 3.0, do some delegation, motivational theory, might even throw some Wardley maps to work out where we're all going, and then before you know it, we're going to have some competition analysis, and then we're going to read books all about management theory, and it's all great, and before you know it, the world is all teal, and then no, really stop, or at least slow down. Okay, and this is kind of where this is the bit where I slightly go off-piste from the theory that I've read so far. And the question that I want to ask is whether moving your organizational culture from where you thought you were to where you thought you would like to be is at all times appropriate for your entire organization. Maybe there is no right answer to this question. We are where we are for a reason. Okay, we might not like it, but unless you understand how you got to your current state, you do not know how you will be able to move it, because the reason you're in your current state is a bunch of ideas and values inside your organization. Unless you appreciate them, then any change is going to conflict against them. But those ideas may not be common within your organization. Maybe you don't want some of these behaviors. So when you try to move your cultural model, you're going to be looking to try and change behaviors of people and habits, the everyday kind of stuff. Well, actually, when you go through all of those everyday kind of behaviors, maybe something associated with governance, risk, and compliance, since we're quite corporate and staid and sensible, maybe when given the opportunity to change into being somewhat more dynamic and flash, maybe that's not us. It's not actually what I want to be. Maybe we can't move the organization that far, that fast, or critically, we don't want to move all the organization that far, that fast. Some of it, maybe we do. Yeah, and you see organizations having things like innovation centers and things. But maybe to protect the kind of thing you're trying to do, maybe it's not the right thing right now. Acknowledging that before you spend tens of thousands of pounds on people like us to address it is going to be a wise investment. OK, so now I want to take a slight tangent. A long time ago, we had projects. This is a nice representation of stuff associated to projects. If you want to like this image, you just Google projects on Google Images and get it. But we've worked out quite a while ago that projects don't quite work in our space. They used to work, but they're not quite so worky anymore, and we get into trouble, and we say it's going to take a month, and it doesn't take a month. People get cross. And fundamentally, it's because of connivance. So it's fundamentally, it's a complexity thing. Projects are based around predictability. It's the approach that you would take to deliver a predefined set of deliverables against a predefined output. You know the consequence of your work against what you're trying to achieve. Project is merely a means of scheduling, and it all works. This is where project sits, and unfortunately, the vast majority of the work which we face these days sits here. Okay, and this is why projects don't work. So we've moved past projects. We are hashtag no projects. Okay, that's a thing. So we went no projects. What do we can do? I know. Let's go to products. Let's go to product management. New industry. Brilliant. New certification. Nice thing. New job title. It's the same as the last one. You get 10% more money. But what we're talking about here now, we're talking about long-standing teams of people that work collectively for a sense of purpose on something they're doing. It has a number of massive advantages over projects. One, you can get a group of people together and you can keep them, as opposed to this concept of you work over here, and now I'm going to ask you to move and do the same thing over here, and the concept of transition is negligible. Projects assume people are fungible, right? That you can lift them up and drop them out and reassemble them like Lego pieces, with no consideration that actually the consequence of their brilliance is the interdependencies and interrelationships that they build within the teams rather than their innate talent. So products seems like a great idea. And actually, this is kind of where most of us are now. But we don't want one product. What we want are lots of them. And the problem, this is where the problem starts to come. Okay? So products themselves have a maturity cycle. So some products are small and little, and some products are really big. And it's not just the revenue generation, it's the characteristics that we apply to those products associated to the risk of damaging them as we go through. So small products, what we're looking for. So this is the 3X model from Kent Beck, talking about an association between success and payoff of fundamentally product maturity. Okay? So small products, what we want is lots and lots of little ideas. We'll try something, this one works, we don't like that one. And once they work, once we start to find that we're getting increased market share against revenue investment, then we want to run as fast as possible to keep ahead of the market, because if we stop, somebody else will copy us and will overtake us. But then we get to the top, and actually, we've got something that generates vast amounts of revenue. The economy of scale is huge. The barrier to entry against our products is very, very high. And actually, the cost or the risk to our product for future investment is very high. We're stable. We're boring. Now, these organizations, these products are the ones where we will struggle to find a cultural fit against the sort of more dynamic, adaptive world that we're talking about. If you overlay the BCG product matrix on the top, you'll find there's an almost perfect match. Yeah, question mark to start, cash cow. The BCG matrix was talking about the difference between investment versus revenue, where you want to take your money versus where you want to put it. The idea here is you take the money from the top and you invest it in the bottom. Do not take the money from your cash cow and reinvest it in your cash cow, because ultimately, eventually, when it dies, you have nothing to survive on. So we've got products, and we know they're different, and we know they are culturally different in terms of how they behave and how we would look after them. And we know we're going to have a portfolio. So this is a representation of a standard financial portfolio from an asset management company. And the key thing you're going to have in a portfolio is diversity. Yeah, you wouldn't have a portfolio where what I've got is I've got Exxon stocks, I've got BP stocks, I've got fixed income investments from Saudi and from Qatar. You wouldn't do that. You're far too exposed to a single industry. Yeah, so what you're looking for here is diversity. You want products that are small, products that are large. You want to cover all the grounds. The problem with having a diverse product portfolio in all sorts of different areas and all sorts of different maturities is that your cultural makeup that you're trying to apply to them to be most appropriate will be different. So where am I kind of going with this? We've moved beyond a portfolio of projects because of the complexity of our environment. So then we moved to portfolios of products to optimize the balance between risk and return. But products within a portfolio will be at different maturities, and the most suitable organizational delivery practices will be based on product maturity against the product. But the problem is that the organization that's applying them will have a single organizational culture. So whichever way you want to go, if you want to go all dynamic and cool and fast, you jeopardize your very large mature product. But if you've got a very large mature product and you want to build a cultural organization that is risk averse and in essence is built to sustain and protect it, then you will be culturally ill-equipped to be dynamic enough to be able to spin through all those new ideas. Because it's not just the delivery element that will apply to your culture, it's things like HR, it's finance, it's the annual billing cycle, it's the rewards, it's the recognition system you have. Now those will be baked into your organizational culture, and chances are they will be of a single type that apply to all products. So I'm going to suggest that we try and split ourselves into a portfolio of cultures. So within an organization, by organization what I mean here is a vehicle that controls investment, so they can control where the money is going between various investment areas. What I'm suggesting is that whole vehicle is split by organizational culture, which is therefore best suited to the product maturity of each different section that it now contains. The principle here is your unit of organizational culture can be quite easily identified by when I say, who do you work for? It's the response I get. Yeah, so I work for them, or I work for these people. But that, of course, does not have to be the unit that controls the investment. Okay, so this is actually not a new idea. There are people out there that already do this. Okay, so is anyone familiar with these companies? Okay. Yeah, so these are the people that I would ask for, do you work here? And they say, I work for O2, or I work for 20, or I work for Movistar. These are units of organizational identity that have products within them which are at a certain maturity stage. Okay? But they all work for Telefonica. This is a single organization with lots of little units of organizational culture which control products which are at different organizational maturities. Thank you.